Welcome back to the ultimate Simpsons Iceberg. Today I'll be covering the second tier, so if you haven't already watched the first part, I encourage you to check it out and make sure to subscribe to not miss out on the next upload. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching. Phil Hartman. Philip Edward Hartman was a Canadian-American comedian, actor, screenwriter, and graphic designer. Hartman voiced a number of iconic Simpsons characters, such as Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure. Hartman was born in Ontario, Canada in 1984, and at the age of 10, he and his family moved to the United States, where they'd eventually settle in the West Coast. Hartman studied at Santa Monica City College before dropping out in 1969 to become a crew member for a rock band. In 1972, Hartman returned to school, attending CSU Northridge to study graphic arts. He'd then go on to start and operate his own graphic art business, which created more than 40 album covers for bands such as Poco and America. In 1975, Hartman began searching for a more social outlet for his talents, so he began attending comedy classes, and so began his career in sketch comedy. His career began to really take off when he and his friend Paul Reubens worked together to develop the character Pee Wee Herman, and later the Pee Wee Herman Show. After years of success, Hartman decided to part ways with the Pee Wee Herman project in 1985. Hartman would go on to take some smaller roles in both television and films, before successfully auditioning for the hit sketch comedy show Saturday Night Live in 1986, where he was most well known for his Bill Clinton impersonation.
Besides, Mrs. Clinton asked us not to let you into any more fast food places.
Well, I just want to mingle with the American people, talk with some real folks, maybe get a Diet Coke or something.
Oh, fine. But please, don't tell Mrs. Clinton.
Jim, let me tell you something. There's going to be a whole bunch of things we don't tell Mrs. Clinton. Fast food is the least of our worries, okay, buddy?
In 1991, Hartman voiced Lionel Hutz in the season 2 episode of The Simpsons, Bart Gets Hit by a Car. Despite the fact that Hartman was brought in for a one-time appearance, Hartman and the Simpsons staff enjoyed working with each other, so the staff wrote additional parts for him. Showrunners Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein enjoyed Hartman's work, so they tried to use him as much as possible. Hartman would appear in a total of 52 episodes, and even expressed interest in making a live-action film about his Simpsons character Troy McClure, which I'll talk about again soon. Unfortunately, these plans never came to be, as on May 28, 1998, Phil Hartman would have a heated argument with his wife at the time, Brenham Dahl, where he'd threatened to leave her if she began to take drugs again. The argument came to an end, with Phil going to bed, and at around 3 a.m., Bryn fatally shot Phil with a .38 caliber handgun while he slept. Later that morning, Bryn would lock herself in her bedroom and take her own life. Police declared that the murder was the result of a domestic discord. Others who were close to the couple speculated that Bryn's actions could have been influenced by her drug abuse. The Simpsons would go on to retire Phil Hartman's characters, who now only occasionally make non-speaking cameo appearances. Marge Simpson's rabbit ears. This entry refers to an interesting design choice in Marge's character in the 1991 Simpsons arcade game. When Marge is zapped, and when Marge's vacuum sucks up her hair, a pair of rabbit ears are revealed to be hiding under her giant blue hair. Why rabbit ears? Well, Matt Groening's plan for Marge was going to be that in the series finale of the show, whenever that'll be, Marge would reveal a pair of giant bunny ears that she's been hiding under her hair all along. The twist would be a nod to Matt Groening's comic series Life in Hell, which featured anthropomorphic bunnies. Matt Groening proposed the idea to his fellow Simpsons developer Sam Simon, but was immediately shot down for good reason. The bunny ears are never referenced or even hinted at again, so it's safe to assume that the planned twist has been scrapped completely. As a matter of fact, we've seen Marge with her hair down a number of times, with no rabbit ears in sight. But as ridiculous of a concept as it may be, I do hope we get to see Marge reveal her giant ears someday, maybe in like a Treehouse of Horror segment. Banned episodes. When you run a TV series that spans over 30 years and close to 1,000 episodes, you're bound to ruffle some feathers along the way. With humor comes controversy, and The Simpsons is no stranger to controversy. As of recording, there have been a total of 11 Simpsons episodes that have been banned to some degree. As mentioned in the first tier, Season 3's Stark Raving Dad has been banned from all streaming services and rebroadcast since 2019. Due to the controversy surrounding Michael Jackson, which was detailed in the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland. Season 15's Cape Fear was banned in Germany for depicting violence against a child, and for featuring a character wearing an SS uniform, as Germany has strict laws that prohibit the use of Nazi reference and symbols, unless it's for educational or historical purposes. Season 9's The City of New York vs. Homer Simpson was banned after the September 11 attacks on the Twin Towers, due to the episode taking place in the Twin Towers, and for including a joke that aged horribly.
Sorry about that, guy. They stick all the jerks in Tower 1.
That's it! I'm coming over there!
Yeah, why don't you come over here? I got some...
Season 9's The Cartridge Family was banned in the United Kingdom for including a riot at a football game and for depicting irresponsible gun use in a comedic way. Season 10's 30 Minutes Over Tokyo was banned in Japan for containing scenes that were insulting to Japanese culture, which included a scene that implied that Hello Kitty products were created by burning cats alive, and another joke that referenced the Porygon scene in Pokemon that caused hundreds of people to go to the hospital. Season 11's Little Big Mom was banned in Japan due to its leprosy subplot. Season 13's Blame It on Lisa was banned in Brazil for its negative portrayal of the city Rio de Janeiro. Season 13's Weekend at Burnsies was banned in the UK for a while for its references to marijuana. Season 16's Goo Goo Gai Pan was banned in China for its quote-unquote unflattering references to the country. Season 19's E Pluribus Vigam was banned in most of Latin America for portraying former Argentine President Juan Perón as a dictator. And Season 33's A Maid Maggie was banned in the Czech Republic. There is no official statement as to why the Czech Republic banned the episode, but I think it's safe to assume that Maggie being groomed into becoming a criminal had something to do with it. 5 Fingers. In the Season 4 episode Homer the Heretic, Homer creates his own religion in order to have an excuse for not going to church. When Homer goes to sleep, God confronts him in his dreams. An interesting feature about God, besides the fact that he has no face, is that he's the only character in the whole series to be shown with 5 fingers in each hand, whereas every other character in The Simpsons only has 4. Some fans theorize that the symbolism behind God having 5 fingers is that the creators of the show are portraying themselves as the gods of The Simpsons. This wouldn't really make much sense, as when Matt Groening was portrayed as a Simpsons character in the 2007 Simpsons game, he appeared with only 4 fingers, just like everyone else. Not to mention the massive ego it would take to portray yourself as God in your own show. There is a much more interesting theory as to why God is the only character with 5 fingers, which I'll talk about in another entry. Rumpus Room. It's no secret that throughout the series, there's numerous inconsistencies with the layout of the Simpsons home. The Real Jim's has a great video where he does a deep dive on the topic, which I encourage you to check out. But one part about the house that boggled my mind when I found out about it is this room. Don't recognize it? Well, it's the Rumpus Room, a room that we almost never see in the whole series. Its location is on the opposite side of the garage, so we do get to see the entrance of the Rumpus Room in the opening credits. But besides that, we've only been shown the inside of the room a handful of times. Paul McCartney's lentil soup recipe. In the Season 7 episode Lisa the Vegetarian, Lisa begins to feel guilty for eating meat, so Apu introduces her to veganism. Apu shows Lisa his garden, located above the Kwik-E-Mart, where he introduces her to Beatles member Paul McCartney and his wife at the time Linda McCartney. During their conversation, Paul McCartney tells Lisa that when the song Maybe I'm Amazed is played backwards, you'll hear a recipe for a lentil soup. During the end credits of the episode, Maybe I'm Amazed plays backwards, with a backwards dub of the recipe included. The ingredients for the recipe are
1 medium onion, chopped, 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, 1 clove of garlic, crushed, 1 cup of carrots, chopped, 2 sticks of celery, chopped, half a cup of lentils, 1 bay leaf, 1 tablespoon of freshly chopped parsley, salt and freshly ground pepper to taste, 2 1/4 cups of vegetable stock or water.
Another fun fact about the episode is that Paul McCartney only agreed to guest star on the condition that Lisa remained vegan for the rest of the series. George Bush vs. The Simpsons. In January of 1992, President George H.W. Bush mentioned The Simpsons show in a speech when he said this:
"We are going to keep on trying to strengthen the American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons."
At the time, The Simpsons was incredibly controversial, not just for its dysfunctional family or offensive jokes, but also because it was animated. People assumed that because the show was a cartoon, that it would be appealing to children and influence them negatively. After the speech, The Simpsons would include some jokes poking fun at Bush every now and then, and even made a clip of the Simpsons family reacting to the speech.
We're going to keep on trying to strengthen the American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons.
Hey, we're just like the Waltons. We're praying for an end to the Depression, too.
4 years after the speech, The Simpsons retaliated by dedicating a whole episode to making fun of the former president, titled Two Bad Neighbors, where George H.W. Bush and his wife Barbara Bush move in across the street from the Simpsons family. Homer and Bush would go on to torture one another, with the Bush family eventually moving out. After the speech, George Bush would go on to lose the next presidential election to Bill Clinton. Bootleg merch. This entry refers to the massive amount of Simpsons bootleg merch that has been produced since the late 80s, more specifically Bart merch. The birth of Bartmania in the early to mid 90s resulted in Bart pretty much becoming the definitive symbol for rebelliousness with teens, and with that kind of influence, spawned in countless iconic bootleg merchandise with Bart as the centerpiece. Bootleg merchandise, for those unfamiliar with the term, refers to unofficial products not licensed by the creators of a brand. Bootleg merch of any popular franchise can be found online, but The Simpsons, with its massive influence on all cultures, has inspired an unmatched portfolio of knockoffs. In the early 90s, when the show's popularity was skyrocketing, bootleg products began appearing at flea markets and street stalls all over the world. These items were often cheaply made, and would include designs that ranged from slightly off-model to hilariously absurd. Today, these products serve as a celebration of not just the show, but of the cultural references the pieces of merchandise parody. Homer and Mr. Burns are related. In 1991, a book that Matt Groening created titled The Simpsons Uncensored Family Album was published. The book was pretty much a family album of the Simpsons family. It includes a bunch of images of the family, and came with a full Simpsons family tree, which revealed that Mr. Burns is a very distant relative of the Simpsons family. The family tree is yet to be contradicted on the show, and considering the fact that Matt Groening made the family tree, I'd say it's safe to assume that the family tree is canon. The familial relationship between Homer and Mr. Burns also adds fuel to a popular fan theory that I'll discuss in another entry. Frink Rules. In the 6th installment of the Treehouse of Horror series, Homer stumbles across a portal behind a bookshelf in the living room when looking for a place to hide from Marge's sisters. Homer decides that whatever's on the other side of the portal couldn't possibly be worse than spending time with Patty and Selma, so he jumps into the portal, sending him into a 3-dimensional world where we see a bunch of geometric shapes, a Greek temple, a fish pond, a coordinate street sign, as well as some numbers and mathematical formulas. A set of numbers is seen in the background that, when decoded using the hex system, translates to Frink Rules. And of course, the Easter egg is referring to Springfield's crazy scientist, Professor Frink. Real-life Simpsons home. In 1997, a real-life replica of the Simpsons house was constructed in Nevada. Once the house was finally built, it opened to the public for a couple of months, and more than 30,000 people, including Matt Groening himself, visited the house. The house was built to give away as a grand prize in a contest known as the Simpsons House Giveaway. The winner of the contest would have the choice of either the house, which was valued at the time at $120,000, or a cash prize of $75,000. A woman from Kentucky won the contest and chose the cash prize over the house. Over the next few years, most of the details of the house that made it appear like the Simpsons home was removed, and the house was sold in 2001. The Simpsons Theory has a whole video on the debacle, which I encourage you to check out if you haven't already. Everyone in the Simpsons family is a genius. A Redditor by the name of Kirby Clock brought forward a theory that all members of the Simpsons family, that being from Homer's side, all have the capability of being just as smart, if not smarter, than Lisa. For Homer's case, Homer would be one of the smartest men to have ever lived had it not been for the crayon that he lodged into his brain at an early age. When the crayon is briefly removed in the season 12 episode Homer, Homer becomes a genius, doing such things as proving God doesn't exist.
I was working on a flat tax proposal and I accidentally proved there's no God.
We'll just see about that. Uh-oh. Well, maybe he made a mistake. Nope.
But he ultimately decides to put the crayon back in order to avoid ostracism from his friends and community, ultimately deciding to live his life as a happy moron rather than a miserable genius. He's also had an incredibly successful music career in numerous styles and genres, which I'd argue takes some pretty high levels of intelligence to do so. In the case of Bart pretty much makes the same decision as Homer. Influenced by seeing his father much happier as an idiot, Bart does the same, although we do see glimpses of Bart's genius through his clever pranks, his ability to survive multiple murder attempts from Sideshow Bob, and his ability to learn a whole new language in just a few days. In an episode where Bart has to pass a test to avoid flunking, we see him struggle to focus on his studies, likely as a result of Bart suffering from undiagnosed ADHD, which would explain his low school grades. Oh, and I imagine being choked by your father on a daily basis also might hinder your brain's capabilities. For Maggie's case, there's literally an episode dedicated to her genius. In season 15, Smart and Smarter, it's revealed that Maggie has an IQ of 167, 8 points above Lisa. Of course, because she is an infant, she hasn't yet had the experiences to learn as much as the other family members, but that hasn't stopped her from showing off her intelligence. Grandpa does seem to be just some senile old man, but through flashbacks, we do see him doing a number of things that require skill, such as being a fighter pilot and an accomplished pianist, which suggests that he at least has an above-average intelligence. You could make an argument for Homer's mother being a genius because she's able to evade the police for so long, but that wouldn't really fit the theory of the genius gene coming from the Simpsons side. Sneedposting. In the season 11 episode E.I.E.I.D.O., we get a brief shot of a store named Sneed's Feed and Seed, formerly Chuck's, which included a joke that I'm sure flew over most people's heads when the episode first aired. The implication of the store's former name, assuming that Chuck's aligns with the rhyming pattern, suggests that the store's name would have been this. Memes related to the sign are referred to as Sneedposting. Sneedposting gained popularity as a meme when an anonymous 4chan user posted a picture of the screenshot, saying they never understood the joke until they went on 4chan. Kwik-E-Mart 7-Elevens. In order to promote the 2007 Simpsons movie, 20th Century Fox partnered with 7-Eleven to transform a number of 7-Eleven locations into Kwik-E-Marts, with 11 in the United States and 1 in Canada. These 12 locations, as well as the majority of other North American 7-Elevens, sold products found in The Simpsons, such as Buzz Cola, Krusty-O's, Squishies, Pink Frosted Donuts, and other Simpsons-themed merchandise. The success of the promotion led to Kwik-E-Marts replacing the Back to the Future gift shops in both the California and Florida Universal Studios theme parks. Fit Tony. When Fat Tony dies of a heart attack in the season 22 episode, Donnie Fatso, his identical cousin from San Diego, Fit Tony, moves in to take over the Springfield Mafia. When the pressure of his new position as the head of the Mafia gets to him, Fit Tony begins to rely on food, which causes him to put on some extra pounds. The weight gain results in his nickname changing from Fit Tony to Fit Fat Tony, to finally just Fat Tony. His resemblance to the original Fat Tony in terms of his physical appearance and his behavior is uncanny to such an extent that it's as if the original Fat Tony never died. Why was Fat Tony killed off just for him to be replaced by his cousin, who in the end becomes a clone of Fat Tony? I don't know, but it happened. A Star is Burns. A Star is Burns is a season 6 episode where the town of Springfield decides to host a film festival after it's reported that the town is the most anti-intellectual city in the United States. Everyone in town creates short films for the film festival. The character Jay Sherman from the animated TV sitcom The Critic flies into town to be one of the judges for the film festival. Barney's film about alcoholism ultimately wins the competition. What makes this episode stand out from the rest is Matt Groening's absolute hatred for the episode. Matt Groening hated the episode so much that he tried everything in his power to get the episode pulled from airing. And when he failed, Groening had his name completely removed from the credits and went public with his concerns, openly criticizing executive producer James L. Brooks to the media. Why was Matt Groening so adamantly against the episode? Well, Matt Groening felt that the episode was just a 30-minute advertisement for Al Jean and James L. Brooks' show, The Critic, and that people would incorrectly associate the show with him. He saw the episode as an attempt from James L. Brooks to get attention for one of his unsuccessful shows. And in response to Groening's outburst, James L. Brooks said, "I am furious with Matt. He's been going to everybody who wears a suit at Fox and complaining about this." When he voiced his concerns about how to draw the Critic into the Simpsons universe, he was right, and we agreed to the changes. Certainly he's allowed his opinions, but airing this publicly to the press is going too far. To this day, A Star is Burns is the only episode of The Simpsons that doesn't feature Matt Groening's name in the credits. I Will Not Defame New Orleans. During the chalkboard gag of the opening of the season 4 episode Homer the Heretic, Bart repeatedly writes, "I will not defame New Orleans" on the chalkboard. This is because the episode prior, titled A Streetcar Named Marge, included a song titled New Orleans, which had lyrics that depicted New Orleans in a negative light.
Lived a city that the damned call home, hear their hellish roundelay.
New Orleans, home of pirates, drunk price souvenir stores. If you want to go to hell, you should take that trip to the Sodom and Gomorrah on the Mississippi. New Orleans, stinking, rotten, vomity, vile New Orleans. Putrid, brackish, maggoty, foul New Orleans. Crummy, lousy, rancid and rank New Orleans.
This offended many residents of New Orleans, and led to complaints from viewers and city officials, who felt the depiction was unfair and damaging to the city's reputation. The show's producers apologized to the people of New Orleans through the chalkboard gag, and today, the incident is now remembered as one of the earliest controversies involving The Simpsons. Frinkiac. This entry refers to an online search engine made specifically for The Simpsons. The website allows users to search for specific quotes, scenes, and moments from the show by entering text or keywords. The search engine then provides screenshots from the show that match the search terms, and allows users to create memes and GIFs using the screenshots. The website's developers also released similar search engines for both Futurama and Rick and Morty. Homer shot Mr. Burns. In an attempt to fool the production staff and avoid having the ending leaked, writer of the episode Who Shot Mr. Burns, David Merkin, had multiple endings created, with each ending revealing a different character shooting Mr. Burns. Some of the alternate endings aired during the clip show, The Simpsons 138th Episode Spectacular, which included Barney, Tito, Moe, Apu, and even Santa's little helper as the gunman. A new fan theory emerged when in a 2020 Reddit post, one user pointed out that a shot from the episode shows Homer disguised as Krusty the Clown. Krusty's appearance in the final scene of Part 1 looked more similar to how Homer looked when he dressed as Krusty and Homie the Clown than Krusty the Clown himself. Fans speculated that Homer was planning on shooting Mr. Burns and was gonna frame Krusty by posing as him, just like Sideshow Bob did in the Season 1 episode Krusty Gets Busted. Homer failed to carry out his plan only because Maggie shot Mr. Burns first. As exhilarating of a discovery this might have been, unfortunately this theory was debunked by Simpsons writer Bill Oakley. Oakley confirmed in a tweet that the resemblance between Krusty and Homer in the scene was just an animation error. What more than likely occurred was Homer was originally animated into the crowd of people. Someone asked for the animators to remove Homer, and instead of removing him completely, was likely just drawn over to look like Krusty. Oprah Interview. This entry refers to a rare 1992 clip from the talk show The Oprah Winfrey Show, where Oprah Winfrey is animated into the Simpsons world and interviews the Simpsons family. After its first airing, the segment was never aired again and was never released on DVD, so the interview was considered lost media until the segment was posted online in 2013. Annoyed Grunt. This entry refers to arguably the most popular catchphrase in all of The Simpsons, that being Homer's dough. The catchphrase is used usually when Homer injures himself or realizes he's done something stupid. The Simpsons has made the word so well known that it was even added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2001. For several years, the word didn't have an official spelling, so when the word was included in scripts for The Simpsons, it would appear as Annoyed Grunt in parentheses. Some episode titles even refer to Homer's dough as Annoyed Grunt, such as Season 11's E-I-E-I-Dough, Season 18's G.I. Doe, and Season 15's Idlebot. Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick is the sketchy and clueless doctor who first appeared in the show as the corrupt lawyer Lionel Hutz's doctor, who he uses to exaggerate Bart's injuries in order to get more money from suing Mr. Burns for hitting Bart with his car. Dr. Nick was actually named after George Dr. Nick Nichopoulos, who was Elvis Presley's own personal physician. Dr. Nichopoulos was indicted on 14 counts of over-prescribing drugs to Elvis in order to cater to Elvis's appetite for prescription drugs. While Nichopoulos was acquitted of those charges, his medical license was revoked in 1993. Although the abuse of his position didn't directly affect Elvis's death, Dr. Nick's legacy will always be one of shame and corruption. Mag Groening's Top 10 Episodes. In the year 2000, to celebrate The Simpsons' 10th anniversary, the magazine Entertainment Weekly asked the creator of The Simpsons, Mag Groening, what his 10 favorite episodes of the series were. His choices were Season 1, Episode 4, There's No Disgrace Like Home; Season 1's Episode 12, Krusty Gets Busted; Season 9, Episode 25, Natural Born Kissers; Season 8, Episode 1, Treehouse of Horror 7; Season 8, Episode 23, Homer's Enemy; Season 8, Episode 22, In Marge We Trust; Season 4, Episode 2, A Streetcar Named Marge. Season 7, Episode 23, Much Ado About Nothing. Season 1, Episode 9, Life on the Fast Lane. And at number 1 was Season 2, Episode 8, Bart the Daredevil. I'm sure after 24 years, his list wouldn't exactly be the same today, but still a pretty solid list if you ask me. Milhouse's name. Bart's best friend Milhouse is one of the most unlucky characters in all of Simpsons. He's constantly victimized throughout the series, usually as a target of the older bullies. But one of the biggest crimes against Milhouse doesn't actually come from any of the bullies in the show, but from his own parents. Milhouse's parents have cursed him with the name Milhouse Mussolini Van Houten. What's so wrong with his name? Well, Milhouse is named after 3 of the most despicable people Groening could think of at the time. Milhouse happens to be Richard Nixon's middle name, the 37th President of the United States, who today is remembered as arguably the worst president of the United States history, after resigning from the presidency as a result of his involvement in the Watergate scandal. Mussolini, of course, comes from the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, who was the founder of fascism in the 1920s, which still pollutes the world today. And Van Houten is a reference to Leslie Van Houten. Leslie was a member of the Manson family. The now 74-year-old served 54 years in prison for participating in the Manson murders of 1969 and was released on parole just last year. Homer's in a coma. In the season 4 episode, Homer the Heretic, Homer refuses to go to church and starts his own religion. But when he nearly dies in a fire, Homer returns to church. Homer's then confronted by God in his dreams. It's here that God reveals to Homer that he only has 6 more months to live. And 6 months after the episode aired, the season 4 episode, So It's Come to This, aired. In the episode, Bart pranks Homer with a shaken up beer that explodes in Homer's face. Homer ends up in the hospital, where a vending machine falls on him, putting him into a coma. At the end of the episode, Homer wakes up and everything goes back to normal. Some fans theorize that Homer never actually woke up from this coma, and every episode following It's Come to This is all in Homer's head. This theory would explain why no one in Springfield ever ages, and the shift in the type of storylines that follow the episode. Before the episode, the storylines in the series were grounded in reality. Bart cheating on his IQ test, Marge almost cheating on Homer, and Marge attempting to cancel the Itchy and Scratchy show. After the episode, the series began to include completely unrealistic events, such as Bart using magic to impregnate people, Homer going to outer space, Bart winning a pet elephant, Lisa discovering a desert flower that causes people's eyes to fall out of their eye sockets, and not to mention the countless celebrities the Simpsons family come across. As intriguing of a theory as it might be, it doesn't really make much sense. If Homer's been in a coma this whole time, and all we're seeing is his dreams, then that raises a few questions as to how he knows what newer celebrities look like. And how would he know so much about modern technology? Sure, his imagination could just be unreasonably accurate, but I'd say it's more likely that this theory is just false. Radiation poisoning. This theory suggests that the reason most characters in The Simpsons are yellow is a result of the radiation poisoning from the nuclear power plant. We see the horrible conditions of the power plant a number of times, so the town of Springfield all suffering from radiation poisoning doesn't seem that unreasonable of a theory. We do know that radiation-induced liver disease is a real thing, and we also know that a bad liver can't get rid of bilirubin, which can cause yellowing of the skin. Futurama even pokes fun at this theory in the season 6 episode The Tip of the Zoidberg, where Zoidberg accidentally causes Fry to develop jaundice.
I'm afraid Fry lost a lot of juice. He's developed Simpson's jaundice.
Ay caramba!
His only hope is some replacement liver. Yours looks like a good match.
Well, if it'll help Fry. Careful, Leela. He knows less about human anatomy than I do. And I can't even find my own uterus.
You may feel a slight sign.
Homer's design was stolen. After the success of The Simpsons, some fans found Homer's design to be pretty similar to that of a 1949 character named Adamson. The character came from the Swedish cartoonist Oscar Jacobson, who was most known for his Silent Sam comics. Admittedly, the two characters do seem pretty similar, but I think it's just a coincidence. The likelihood that Homer's design was influenced by Adamson just seems highly unlikely to me, especially when you consider the fact that Adamson just never reached the level of popularity that would result in a comic nerd from Oregon coming across the comics. Season 6 DVD case. This entry refers to the controversy that came with the release of the Simpsons Season 6 DVD set. Starting in 2001, Fox began to release DVD box sets containing complete seasons of The Simpsons. In 2005, the Season 6 box set was released, and fans were outraged. Why? Well, because unlike Seasons 1 through 5, the case that Season 6 came in was not a cardboard box, but a flimsy plastic case. The Season 6 case did come with a number that fans could call to request a cardboard box be sent to their home, but the phone number was incorrect, leaving a number of fans stuck with the plastic case. For those who did manage to call the right number, they'd have their full names and addresses publicly available online due to a lapse in basic web security, which was discovered in a video that will be linked in the description. After the Season 6 release, retail stores began to offer both the cardboard box and plastic cases for every season beyond Season 6, with each season featuring a different character. Crazy Taxi. Crazy Taxi is a 1999 Sega game where you play as a taxi driver who drives people to their destinations in the fastest time possible. 2 years later, EA released the video game The Simpsons Road Rage, where you play as Simpsons characters and drive passengers to their destinations. Sega, of course, sued EA and Fox Interactive, claiming that Road Rage was a nearly identical ripoff of Crazy Taxi. The case was eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. Incompetent Safety Inspector. Do you ever wonder why Mr. Burns keeps Homer as a safety inspector at the power plant? We've seen a number of times Homer be completely incompetent at his job. We know that Homer knows absolutely nothing about safety procedures and is completely incapable of reporting any safety violations. Well, that's exactly why Mr. Burns keeps Homer. Mr. Burns knows that, with a clueless safety inspector like Homer, Mr. Burns could get away with just about anything. A competent safety inspector wouldn't allow Burns to run the plant at the lowest possible cost. In the Season 2 episode about the three-eyed fish, the power plant is inspected, and Burns is ordered to fix the power plant after the inspectors find numerous safety violations to keep the plant running. Rather than spending his money on fixing the power plant, Mr. Burns instead runs for governor to drop the charges against him. So yeah, keeping Homer around on a cheap salary in order to save millions of dollars just seems like something Mr. Burns would do. Lyle Lanley was a psychopath. Lyle Lanley is a character who appears in the Season 4 episode Marge vs. Monorail. In the episode, Mr. Burns is caught disposing nuclear waste at a Springfield park. As a result, Mr. Burns is forced to pay the town of Springfield $3 million, and the town then has to decide what to do with the extra money. Ultimately, the people are charmed into paying Lyle Lanley the money to build a monorail for the town. But when Marge visits Lanley's office, she finds his notebook. When she opens it, she finds a drawing of Lanley with his money and the monorail on fire with people still inside. At the grand opening, citizens of Springfield fill the monorail, with Homer as the conductor. The brakes of the monorail fail, and the people are only saved by an eclipse that stops the solar-powered vehicle. Lanley flies off with the money, landing in a town where an angry mob is waiting for him. It's assumed that Lanley was just in it for the money, but one fan theorizes that Lanley's intentions were much more cynical. If Lanley was just in it for the money, then why spend some of the money building a faulty monorail? Why not just leave with the money? And in his notebook, why did Lanley draw people screaming and dying on a flaming monorail? And when Marge visits another town that Lanley built a monorail for, the town's almost completely empty, with the few people Marge does come across seeming like they suffered a large catastrophe. And like most con artists, it wouldn't be unreasonable to say that Lanley had no issue with harming other people. All these signs point to one dark theory. Lanley went out of his way to purposefully build faulty monorails, because he wanted to, and did, kill a large number of innocent people. Disney buys Fox. In the Season 10 episode When You Wish Upon a Star, which aired in the year 1998, we get a shot of the outside of Fox Studios. At the bottom of the sign is a small phrase that reads, "A division of Walt Disney Company." 21 years later, Disney would purchase 21st Century Fox, meaning that 21 years before the acquisition. The Simpsons correctly predicted that Disney would one day buy 21st Century Fox. Cletus is a millionaire. Cletus is the stereotypical redneck of Springfield. He lives in a tiny shed with his wife, who may also be a sister and cousin, and their 39 children.
Hey, kids, we're eating dinner tonight! Come on, Tiffany, Heather, Cody, Dylan, Dermot, Jordan, Taylor, Brittany, Wesley, Rumor, Scout, Cassidy, Zoe, Chloe, Max, Hunter, Kendall, Caitlin, Noah, Sasha, Morgan, Kira, Ian, Lauren, Hubert, Phil.
But despite his humble appearance, a popular theory amongst fans is that Cletus is actually one of the wealthiest men in Springfield. In the season 9 episode The Joy of Sect, Homer along with a number of Springfield residents all join a cult called Movementarianism. The cult is led by a man simply known as the leader, and during the episode, Homer signs off all of his possessions to the leader in order to join the cult. Assuming that every other member of the cult did the same, and considering the fact that the majority of Springfield residents joined the cult, then that leads fans to conclude that the leader possessed ownership of most of Springfield. At the end of the episode, the leader flies off with all of the possessions, which included bags of money and contracts that confirmed ownership of properties and possessions of the cult's followers. The leader's fake spaceship that he flies off in very quickly falls apart and he lands on Cletus' front porch. Cletus then proceeds to point a shotgun at the leader, demanding that he leaves the property without his stuff. Assuming that Cletus kept everything that crashed into his property, Cletus would then be the owner of not just numerous bags of money, but also a majority of properties in Springfield. And that's just one instance of Cletus earning himself a good chunk of money. Throughout the series, we've also seen Cletus operate his own moonshine distillery, sell helium that was discovered on his property to Mr. Burns, and own a successful sandwich shop with his family. Homer is a billionaire. Another fan theory about a Springfield resident being filthy rich. This time it's Homer. We know that Homer is well off, with him being able to afford the Simpsons family home, but just how well off is he? Well, in the first few seasons, we get a number of episodes related to Homer's financial struggles. There's the first episode, where Homer has to take a side job as a mall Santa in order to afford Christmas presents. And there's also the season 1 episode There's No Disgrace Like Home, where Homer has to sell the living room television to afford a therapy session for the family. But as the series goes on, any signs of financial struggles have practically vanished. But why? Well, what we do know is Marge, for the most part, is a stay-at-home mom, meaning that Homer is the only provider of the household. We also know that Homer's full-time job at the power plant pays him around $400 a week, nowhere near enough to afford the lifestyle he and his family live. Well, besides the short-term jobs we see Homer take, such as an astronaut, professional boxer, and even CEO of the nuclear power plant, Homer's had a successful music career that spanned a number of genres and decades. There was the time when he became one of the biggest opera singers in the world. There was the B-Sharps, which was a barbershop quartet that he was a member of along with Apu, Principal Skinner, and Barney, who are implied to be just as big as the Beatles. And Homer was also the frontman of 90s rock band Sadgasm, a band that was so successful that it allowed Homer to afford a mansion at the time. With all these successful careers, it's hard to imagine Homer isn't making at least 6 figures off residuals alone. But none of that compares to the gift Homer receives in the season 8 episode You Only Move Twice, where Homer receives a gift that today would be worth billions. The episode begins with Homer accepting a new job, working at a high-tech company called Globex Corporation. The Simpsons family moved to Cypress Creek, and it's here where Homer meets his new boss, Hank Scorpio, an evil genius bent on world domination. Homer's completely oblivious to his new boss's sinister goals, and because of that, the two get along. As much as Homer loves his new job, his family tell him they want to return to Springfield. So the next day, Homer seeks advice from Scorpio. Scorpio tells Homer to do what he feels is best for his family. Homer then decides to resign, and the Simpsons family return to Springfield. When the Simpsons family get back home, Homer finds a newspaper on the doorstep, saying that Scorpio has seized the East Coast. Homer then picks up a letter, saying that Hank Scorpio has left him a farewell gift. It's then revealed that Scorpio gifted Homer the football team, the Denver Broncos. Now, assuming that Homer never sold the franchise, this would mean that Homer is currently the owner of a sports team that's now worth over $5 billion, making Homer a multi-billionaire. Homer's therapist Paranoia. In the season 6 episode Fear of Flying, we learn about Marge's fear of flying after she has a panic attack in an airplane. To deal with her fear, Lisa suggests therapy. However, Homer disagrees, claiming that therapy breaks up families and turns wives against husbands. Once Marge does see a therapist, Homer rushes her out as soon as Marge realizes the cause of her trauma, and Homer's problem with therapists is never addressed again. During a season 28 episode, Homer rediscovers a hot dog stand that he regularly visited as a kid. Grandpa tells Homer that when Homer was a boy, Abe and Homer's mother Mona would leave him at the hot dog stand while they went to a marriage counselor. This resulted in Homer finding comfort in the hot dogs, as it helped them cope with the trauma of his parents' dysfunctional relationship. And as we know, Mona ended up leaving the two unannounced when Homer was just 9. So as a result of all these events, fans theorize that Homer now has a fear of therapy because he associates therapy with the feeling of abandonment. So that brings us to the end of the second tier of the ultimate Simpsons iceberg. I appreciate you watching if you've made it this far. These videos do take forever to make, so I'd really appreciate it if you drop a like on the video, and I hope to see you on the next one.